This is Oscar week.
It is.
If you had a ballot, what would be winning? I don't have a ballot. I can't brag and say I have a ballot. But so we're all just picking armchair quarterback stuff over here.
I admittedly have still a few more films to
Okay.
see. Like I might try and go get a screening of 1917, and I still have Joker and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood.
Okay.
I just didn't get around to see some of those big films. But I've got both of those two on Blu-ray, or 4K actually, and so I got to just sit down and pop them in.
Yeah.
So, I mean, based on what I've seen, let's see, what are the best picture nominees? Let me see if I can pull up a list real
Sure.
quick.
You have 1917. You have Parasite. You have Jojo Rabbit. You have Marriage Story, The Irishman, and then Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. You just renamed another one here. There's 9. There's too many. Let's just say that.
Ford v. Ferrari,
Ford v. Ferrari,
Little
Little
Women,
Women, and
Ooh.
Joker. So those are your 9.
Okay, so looking at the list,
Yeah.
I have actually only seen 2 of these films.
Okay. I'm not going to tear up your film card. Don't worry.
Little Women and Parasite.
Okay. Between those two in an
And-
arm wrestling match,
oof.
which one you like?
I think I would personally have to go with Little Women just because that's a story that I've had a personal connection to for a long time. That's another production I did in high
There you
school
go.
was Little Women, and I loved that film
Yeah,
to
me too.
pieces.
Same here.
So good.
It's my number 2 of the year. That would win the arm wrestling match with Parasite for me too.
And you picked 1917.
I
right?
did. It's my number 1 of
Yeah.
the year, and
That's what I thought.
you need to see it on the biggest, loudest screen you can find. So
Yeah, my roommate saw that I think last week
Mm-hmm.
with his fiance, and so I gotta hop over to the theater and get it done.
no worries, no rush. They're going to give an award out Sunday whether you like it or not.
Right. Well, if that is all we have to chit chat about, let's just go ahead and move on to our discussion. So, everybody, welcome to Cinescope episode 83. I am back with Don Shanahan after a long hiatus of us talking. Obviously, the podcast was on hiatus for a long time, but Don, it's nice to talk to you again.
Good to talk to you too, Chad.
Our previous films that we talked about The Karate Kid, and wasn't there one other?
I want to say E.T.
Yes, that was it.
Yeah.
And E.T., I think, might have actually been like the last episode before the hiatus. So
Oh.
you had a special guest spot there.
I feel like a jinx right now. Like, I'm the monkey you have to get off your back to come back. So, all right, we're good. I'm glad we're here. And with something
Yes.
more current than those two.
Yes, and I was so excited to sit down and watch this movie again, Don.
Me too.
Just like talking with Dan Lefebvre last week, I showed him my list of movies that I want to talk about because he didn't necessarily have anything on the forefront of his mind, and he picked Adventures of Tintin, and so we talked about the Adventures of Tintin, and we did the same thing. I showed you my list, and you said, "How about John Carter?" And I said, "Yes, how about that? Let's do it."
Yeah. And I know we both follow, I think, the Underrated podcast
Mhm.
with those boys, and they love this movie too. I tell you what, I meet so many people in little film circles, whether it's Facebook groups or otherwise, where this is one of those little engine that could movies that people just the fans that like it love it.
Mhm.
There's people who are like, I didn't get it at the time, but you know what? It's an all right movie. It's fun. It's good. I have no one who ever steps up and goes, man, that movie's garbage and I hate it. No one does.
Nobody.
They'll admit that it wasn't maybe their thing at the time, or they'll admit that it wasn't the big hit it could have been, or that it's got its flaws, but no one downright hates it. Yet the world sees this movie as a massive flop, and it's such a shame.
Let's talk stats first, and then we'll talk
Sure.
about like our first experience. And I have an interesting first experience with this movie and this
I
franchise.
want to hear.
So this movie was released on March 9th of 2012, was directed by Andrew Stanton. This was his first live action, and so far only live action film directorial effort. He co-directed A Bug's Life, and then he went on to direct Finding Nemo, WALL-E, and then Finding Dory, all for Pixar, obviously. The screenplay was written by Stanton, along with Mark Andrews and Michael Chabon, and it was based on A Princess of Mars by Edgar Rice Burroughs. The music is by Michael Giacchino, who is most known for Mission Impossible 3, Ratatouille, Star Trek, Cars 2, Up, Mission Impossible Ghost Protocol, Star Trek Into Darkness, The Incredibles 1 and 2, Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, Inside Out, Star Trek Beyond, I could keep going and keep going. I'm not going to read out all of them.
Yeah, you just say 2 Oscars and he's the man.
Yeah, he is so great. He's one of my favorite composers, and this is one of my favorite scores by him, and we'll have plenty to say about that later. The movie stars Taylor Kitsch as John
Yeah.
Carter, Bryan Cranston in a small part, Daryl Sabara, plus Lynn Collins as Deja Thoris, Dominic West, Ciaran Hinds,
Hmm.
James Purefoy, Willem Dafoe, Samantha Morton, and Thomas Hayden Church,
Yes, sir.
as well as Mark Strong as another villain.
Professional movie villain. Yes.
So let's have you start. What was your first experience with this movie that you remember?
This was around the same time, if I remember correctly, as The Hunger Games. And I think this one came out first. I want to say The Hunger Games came out in April. And I had known nothing about either franchise. And I trusted the Disney brand. I don't mind Taylor Kitsch as an actor. The marketing for so many people, myself included, was odd. You know, I don't think people understood what they were stepping into because I think a lot of people see this as like a Star Wars knockoff or I'm sorry, an Avatar knockoff and a Star Wars wannabe. And I don't feel like it's that movie at all. Where I mean, but I have a discerning eye, or at least I think I do, when I'm watching previews and stuff. And I was hooked. I wanted to see it. They look great. Everyone else was kind of like poo-pooing it. And I'm like, no, I can't wait to see that. It's going to be so fun, especially when you get Disney, especially when you get Stan and things like that. And I saw it, you know, your typical Thursday night show. 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock, when you could see him early in time for Friday, and I loved it. I was hook, line, and sinker in for it. Whether it was the score, the sweep of it, the swashbuckling, the sword and sandal combination with science fiction. As soon as I got out of the movie, I had to absolutely digest history. I went to a Wikipedia page and I'm like, I didn't know my way around Edgar Rice Burroughs. I didn't know the full history of the series and things like that. I had heard of the name because I knew the Tarzan history with the author, but I had no idea the world went as deep as it did, and I had no idea it had the roots and inspirations that it did for other people since then. You know, because this was the pulpiest of pulp
Mm-hmm.
100 years ago when the book was written. So, and it was the thing that inspired the Ray Bradburys and the Carl Sagans of the next generation, who have gone on to inspire the James Camerons and the people of now. So this is bedtime story stuff, and I took it as that after I saw the movie, and I'm like, you know what? This would be a heck of a bedtime story. I don't need it to be an Avatar knockoff or a Star Wars wannabe. I was so pleased with it. But by the time I saw The Hunger Games, you know, a month later or so, I was just so underwhelmed because I'm like, gosh, I know this is a made-up world and a post-apocalyptic this and that, or something that is trying to be high fantasy. But you know what? I'd rather watch John Carter right now.
Mm-hmm.
And I had such a blast just enjoying, as if I was a kid watching something new, something amazing, and yet we're watching something 100 years old.
And that is the irony of looking at this as a knockoff of Star Wars or of Avatar, is the fact that those are actually knockoffs of this in a lot of ways.
Exactly.
There are direct scenes, like the big arena scene that everybody thinks in this film was a ripoff from Attack of the Clones. Attack of the Clones took it from this first. So there are lots of small instances like this. It also inspired stuff from Superman and a whole lot of other things. I said I had an interesting history with this franchise.
Yeah, let's hear it.
So when it was first being promoted and first coming out, I was following Andrew Stanton on Twitter, and he was very excited about his first live action directorial effort. He was very excited about some of the positive reviews that were coming out at the time, and he was sharing those. So naturally, I was seeing a lot of the positive reception that this film was getting initially because I was seeing it directly from the director. And Andrew Stanton being who he was, and WALL-E being one of my favorite films, and certainly Finding Nemo as well, I had a lot of reason to be really excited. I was so excited for this movie. And then it came out. And it flopped. And I am ashamed to say I was one of the people who contributed to it flopping. I didn't go see it in theaters. I just never got around to it. So sometime after it had been released, I picked up a book on Amazon. I think I got it for free. It was called John Carter and the Gods of Hollywood by Michael D. Sellers. And it just explores the history of this production, the promotion of this film, how it flopped so badly. And I was just completely drawn into it. This is before I saw the film. This is before I had read any of the material.
You took all that in before you saw the film. Amazing.
Yes, I wanted to know like what happened. I was so excited for this, and it came out, and then I lost interest. Why? And so the author explores all those possibilities. And soon after, I picked up the first book in the John Carter series. I picked up A Princess of Mars and I read it. And it is, as you said, such pulpy fun. It is such a great page turner. Every page, something new and exciting is happening. It is just like the adventure story of all adventure stories. It is so much fun. And so after I read it, I was enthralled. I loved it. That is when I finally picked up the movie, watched it, and darn it all if I didn't love it. You know, it was, and then it was like kicking myself in the pants because I didn't catch it in theaters when I had the chance. And I mean, unfortunately, this film's reputation being what it is, it's likely not ever going to get a film re-release.
Yeah. Yeah, the best you're gonna get is a big home 4K screen, you know?
Right. And so, I mean, it's at the same time a good adaptation of the source material, but I also loved how, in a lot of ways, it was a new exploration of the character and of the story.
Agreed.
And I don't want to spend the whole podcast sort of comparing and contrasting the movie to the book. One, because it's been a long time since I read the book at this point,
Sure.
but I will highlight just a couple of things that I think stand out about what Stanton accomplished with this movie. So that's my history of it. I'll give one quick plug and then I'll plug it at the end. I did a whole exploration of John Carter back when I first started exploring things. And I did this big write-up on my blog at the time called Chad Talks Movies. My Adventures on Barsoom is what I called it. And so I did reviews of that book by Michael Sellers. I did review of The Princess of Mars and then the movie and then the soundtrack. So I'll put that in the show notes for anybody who wants to read all of that kind of comparison kind of stuff.
Yes, please. My hand is up.
But for now, let's just talk about the movie and let's kick it off with the story. So what about the story or the set production design, any of that kind of stuff really stands out to you here?
I came to after seeing the movie, I was inspired enough years later. It took years to get back to it. It was also me just trying to, I'm not a book reader. I don't have any patience to sit down and read a book, page to page, things like that. I'm exhausted. I'm tired. I write my own. I have enough things going on. But I got to a point, with commuting to work, and I have a good half-hour commute to work, where I started to digest audiobooks.
Mm-hmm.
I started to use, plug here to the Hoopla digital app that you can get from your local library. And the very first books I wanted to grab were the Barsoom series from Edgar Rice Burroughs, because I loved the movie. I had seen the movie multiple times since it came out, and I'm like, I want to know what the books are like. And same thing, I did Princess to Mars first. I ended up going through the first I think the first 4 books,
Mm-hmm.
and I could not digest them fast enough on audiobooks, which was awesome. And they only made me appreciate the story more. And I think the hardest thing we can talk about, without comparing novel to screen, is the book will always be better than the movie. That's just a disclaimer that goes on a T-shirt we all get to wear. But at the same time, if you can turn the book into a movie in an economical and smart and savvy fashion, I think you've got something going. And this movie does that, and does it while still kind of taking some time to breathe. Like, you have a pretty lengthy little prologue here of time spent on Earth to do the Daryl Sabara bookend, but also to set up the prospector, set up the war angle, set up his kind of indifference to things, and then you have an extended little epilogue where, I don't want to jump to the end, but where he leaves Barsoom, and we have to kind of wrap that up a little bit. And I know that's probably 20 minutes of fat other people see into a movie, but I'm so pleased that they found a storytelling device to do that, which again matches the novel, of a story being told.
Mm-hmm.
And I love that, because I think too many movies with source material like this forget the storytelling fashion of this, forget the bedtime story thing I mentioned earlier, where these are the things that weren't automatically translated to radio or screen and things like that. These were things that were soaked up, absorbed, and read in living rooms with families at bedtimes and things like that. So go ahead and make a movie that emulates that. Let's sit down and stay here for a while experience. And Stan did that beautifully, where the story has sweep and you still can kind of mix enough elements into the Barsoom story. I know you have to squeeze a lot of exposition in there of who's who, what's what, but I think it moves so well to do so with that. I know it's kind of jargon and gobbledygook if you're not ready for it, but my goodness, if we can accept the Force and laser swords, we can accept something like this. So I think the thing that stands out a bunch, and I don't think it gets enough credit for it, is the production design.
Mm-hmm.
This is Nathan Crowley, the production designer, who's the regular for Christopher Nolan.
Mm-hmm.
So this is the guy who's been nominated for 5 Oscars. He's done Dunkirk. He's doing Tenet this coming year. I mean, they brought in big guns to make this movie look amazing. And Utah doubling as Mars is outstanding, because you can tell in so many places how many practical sets they've done. And this isn't just 300 where it's all CGI green screen stuff. There's plenty of CGI, but they're kicking up dust. They're getting dirty. They're down in the muck and all that. They're doing the performance capture to put people in screen and not just all, again, not fake things. They did their best to put things in place, and I couldn't be more impressed by that.
Yeah, I love the use of real sets. The shooting on location adds so much to the film. The fact that it's not just like some weird sci-fi space exploration of Mars. This is like a place that you could go and look at if you wanted to. If you really wanted to go see what Mars, quote, looks like, you could go out to these locations and you could see exactly where they put this film together. And you're right, they did put people out there in motion capture suits. I think the people playing the Tharks, Willem Dafoe was out there on stilts. Like he was out there being a Thark. The way that they tried to give the film that sort of authenticity was really impressive. I also really love the bookends with Daryl Sabara. I mean, how great for an author to sort of have the audacity to write himself into the story and make himself a relative of his main character. That is so much fun. Edgar Rice Burroughs, whatever. That's awesome. But I like that even before we get the Daryl Sabara stuff, we get the introduction to sort of the politics, the goings on of Mars. Okay, Mars is dying. This is what's happening. Sabthan is taking over. He has this mysterious new weapon. There's these other weird people that are taking control. And so right from the start, even before we're introduced to who this John Carter person is from the title, we know that Mars is in trouble.
Again, economical.
Right. And they're in need of some sort of savior. And so, yeah, we can guess John Carter is going to be going to Mars. He's going to be their savior in some capacity. But we set that up from the start, and we see him get to that point later. I like just the world building, and a lot of this is attributed to Edgar Rice Burroughs because he's the original author, of course. But the fact that Mars isn't just like this is not only a civilized planet, it is also a planet with advanced technology. And the design of these ships that look like giant dragonflies is so cool. The weapons are really futuristic in a really cool way. It's very futuristic and different than Star Wars.
And I don't want to give it the easy adjective that other people have done of like steampunk. It's better than that. Better than that.
It is. And man, just the fact that we do have so many diverse kind of characters, diverse races, different kinds of people to root for, to follow along. There's so much going on in this world. And yes, I'd say you probably need to go to the book if you want to get the full picture of it, but the film presents things in a very economical way, as you stated. And it's really easy to follow and really easy, if you're giving it the attention that is necessary, to really figure out what's going on pretty quickly.
I know I've been mean to people sometimes about this movie, where I think in my write-up I called it, there's some youthful ignorance here. Because this is different storytelling than the fast stuff we do now because of the source novel and et cetera. And the idea that this was a series that was going to keep going. And again, some of this is also Burroughs' words, where you've read the book, where, I mean, it's not shorthanded English either. Like it's rich language, and in the lengthy descriptions of the different races and things, and the imagination to say we're going to have this, we're going to have that, we're going to have this thing do this, and even his descriptions of the animals in the novel, they're just so incredibly thick that we just don't get that nowadays. You have so many movies we see nowadays have just these nondescript things, minions or monsters. I hate to call out the MCU and the Avengers, but like, what are Thanos' creatures that have us, that are in battling in Wakanda and then later in New York at the end of, both of the two Avengers movies? Like, there's no description, time spent or investment in developing what all that could be. It's just stuff for the sake of stuff to fight and beat up. Whereas in this, you have Woola, you have the Tharks, you have all these defined and described things that matter and have push and have motivations, thanks to that prologue. And yeah, I just thought this did a better job, like you said, with world building than 10 times other movies that we see nowadays that just throw stuff together or copy a zillion ideas and hope for the best.
The thing you have to think about, and the thing you have to realize when Stanton adapted this and did such a great job with, is that this was basically originally written sort of like a TV show. It was serialized.
Sure.
Princess of Mars started being released in 1912, and it wasn't published in a novel form until 1917. It was released in serials. It was bit by bit by bit, and so each thing had to sort of stand on its own and leave a little hint of what's coming up next, and that's the way the film plays out too. It's a great serialization of this story.
If you were to take this film and break it into 15, 20-minute little short film chunks, it would work, because there's these little twists, there's these little turns. Like, you get him stuck in the cave in Arizona and you stop, come back next week. You send him into the planet, he's trying to jump around and figure out. The Tharks show up, come back next week.
Hmm.
Tharks take him in as a prisoner, take him around, and come back next week. All of a sudden, he saves the princess of. Yeah, you could do it every 15 minutes. This movie could turn for you and transition for you, and Stanton keeps that, which is brilliant.
Hmm. But it still also works as an entire combined
Absolutely, yeah.
story.
When you get time.
Now, talking about John Carter himself, I like that right from the beginning, when we're meeting him in 1881, we get a little bit of mystery to his character. He's an explorer of some kind. He's been traveling the world, and his attorney says it always seemed to me he was looking for something, or not his attorney, his assistant. It always seemed to me he was looking for something. And when we go back to several years previous, 1868, I believe, he's being teased about searching for his evil spider cave of gold. So he's this explorer. We don't know what he's looking for, but there's that mystery. And then all of a sudden he's dead. And we don't know exactly what's going on, but his nephew comes into the picture, and we get the flashback via the journal. Great framing device. And we see so much of his character in these beginning scenes in Arizona. We see this decorated war hero who wants no part of any further war, any further fighting. We see views of his wedding ring, flashbacks to glimpses of who we can assume at the time to be his wife. And by the end of the film, we know he's lost his wife, he's lost his daughter to war. And he finds himself guilty. It's a tragedy. It's a really sad thing. And it's because he was fighting, it's because other people were fighting that he lost his family. And so you understand why he's so averse to participating in these conflicts, to aligning himself to either side. But we also still see him as a noble man. In that, again, that opening scene in Arizona, he escapes on horseback. And when the Apaches attack and Powell is injured, he could have left him behind, but no, he goes and saves him. He takes him off. Yes, he says he doesn't care about either side fighting against each other, but we also see, in contrast to that, how he is a noble person. He does care, and he does value life.
His character arc is really well done because they telegraph that so well in very humane ways. Like, he does it through body language and action so much more than he does it with speechifying.
Mm-hmm.
He does drop his lines of, like, I'm not here for a cause. I don't need another thing to do. But he's not really jibber jabbering away about being overly verbose. Like, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to do that. You see it with like when Deja falls off the thoat, and he just instinctually, as just a gentleman, check on a girl who fell down.
Mm-hmm.
I just got done yelling at her, but I got to check on the girl that fell down.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many little body language notes and actions in the film to expand, like you said, this nobility of character. There's grand gestures as well, but the little things along the way, even just his use of ma'am, just to even be Southern, to retain that and keep that here. And it helps that Taylor Kitsch is, a darn good looking Texan Southern guy, who can pull that off. Now, don't get me wrong, he's not winning any Oscars anytime soon, but at the same time, you could have done far worse. You could have had a Dolph Lundgren level himbo in there who couldn't emote any of that, but you believe it through Taylor Kitsch because he has that tortured soul quality to him, thanks to years of getting beat up on Friday Night Lights. So,
well, something that stands out about the film version of John Carter versus the book version is what occurred to me while reading A Princess of Mars is that John Carter is just a hero. He's like a flawless hero. I can't speak to the other books in the series, but Princess of Mars is just like, I am the good guy. I'm going to do good guy things. I'm going to be the action hero.
And he knows he's the strongest,
right?
And the best.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But here we see flaws in his character. We see he's rude, he's rebellious, he's selfish, he's disrespectful to authority. And so it gives him something to strive for. From beginning to end, he is striving to be the John Carter of the book, the John Carter of Mars. That's that transformation that takes place over the film. He goes from General or Captain John Carter of Virginia to Dotar Sojak, right hand of Tars Tarkas, to John Carter of Earth, to Jeddak of the Tharks, and then eventually to John Carter of Mars. So he has a step-by-step transition where we see, as he's building these relationships with people, he's reconsidering his stance on life choices and committing in the end to marrying Deja and to throwing away the medallion that would have brought him home. Very cool transformation for this character, and I like how he goes from selfish to selfless in a lot of ways.
I think the penultimate scene of that, and I bet you agree, is when he sends Deja off to save herself with Soja, and he stays back with Wola and takes on that horde of more monstrous Tharks. That scene, between Giacchino's score, between the editing to hash in with every sword strike is a shovel strike of him burying his wife and daughter.
Mm-hmm.
That scene is
It's
dynamite
heavy.
because it's heavy, but it's heavy, it's adventurous, it's exciting because he's out there, he's like, this is it. I'm giving my life. I'm done, sword drawn, let's do this.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm going to do this for the girl I want to save. I'm going to do this for the girl I lost. And all of it comes out with every sword strike, every note of the music, every blow he strikes. And it's awesome.
It is.
We haven't seen a hero. We just got done with another trilogy of Star Wars movies that never had a hero moment like that. Not even close.
And that's the key with his decision making in that scene too. He didn't go into that horde saying, I'm going to survive this. I'm going to kill them all.
No,
he goes, I'm
done.
going in sword slashing.
Yep.
I'm ending them. I'm ending me. Like this is the end of me.
Absolutely.
And I love what that means for his character. It's such a strong choice to see him commit himself to ending himself, basically. And yes, he does come out of it, but that wasn't his intention going in.
No, and you said it's selfless. He goes from selfish to selfless, and that's the big peak of it. And his actions from there is like like you said, that's when he starts to pick up and go, all right, I got my cause and let's roll.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go get me an army. I'm going to go be a leader. I'm going to really show up and make all the right choices to ascend to a place that I can do some good. But it took that moment of that selfless jump
Mm-hmm.
I can't say the jump, but just that motion of I'm in that massive level of commitment. Like I said, I can't name. I know we've had a lot of MCU films lately, and we've had a lot of Star Wars movies lately, and I know Tony Stark. If we're going to do an Avengers parallel, kind of sort of wants to do this when he snaps his fingers to take Thanos away at the end of Endgame, but that's a momentary thing after he sits out of the game for a while. I can't give me the John Carter moment
Right.
to the Iron Man. I'm sorry, but yeah, it's just drawn up so much better. It's done in the right place, and cinematically, it's just shot so much better.
And one of my favorite moments is that scene in the arena where he has defeated the White Apes, he's saved Tars Tarkas, and he wishes for challenge on Tal Hagis, and he brings him down. And that is so fantastic, having everybody pledge their medal to him. And Tal Hagis says, okay, let's bring it on. And he jumps down, and there's not even a fight. Who cares?
No.
This guy is a chump compared to John. And I love how John leverages that into let's build an army. Let's convince everybody that every life is worth fighting for. Put aside old prejudices, put aside old enemies and conflicts. We are fighting for Mars. I am John Carter of Mars now, and we are going to stand up for our planet and against Sabthan.
And I'm always impressed that I'm allowed to be impressed by it now since I've read the book, is all that politics is in the book. All of that, we need to do something better and we need to change the way we are as a planet and unify together. All that stuff's in the book. It's not just some wishy-washy thing put in the movie for the sake of, having political commentary in the movie. That's the book too, bringing Martians together. And it's awesome. I again, the scope of creation from Burroughs, it was honored by Stan, shows up here, just even a taste of it, because again, this is a movie compared to the depths of the book, but man, it's all there.
Well, let's use that to transition into talking about Tars Tarkas and the Tharks sort of as a whole, because the Tharks are, I think, the most fascinating species or group of people, creatures in this world, because we see so much of their individual politics. We see the fact that their young are born separately, and then they are claimed in this like wrestling match between all the mothers, basically. And the ones that don't hatch along with the others, they're too weak. They're not worthy of being Tharks. Kill them. Destroy the eggs.
Yep.
That is such a violent take. That is such a hard take. And those are hard and violent people. They make sport of war. When we see that Helium and Zodanga are fighting in the airships in the Thark space, they take cover and they place bets because this is fun for them. They're watching people slaughter each other and they want to pick a winner. And at the end of it, Tars Tarkas says, let red men kill red men, let Tharks be the only ones left. So we see this really harsh view of the world and of their culture and society among the Tharks. We see how Sola has been treated at the hands of the Tharks, all these punishments, all these marks on her skin for basically nothing. She's basically just picked on because she's different. Right.
Yeah.
And so what we see over the film is how Tars himself, first off, he has the trust of his people. When Tal Hajjus at the beginning of the film asks for the right of challenge, nobody backs him up for it because there's no reason to challenge Tars Tarkas. They have been prosperous, they have been doing well, and Tars has been a great leader. But then we learn that Sola is his daughter. John intuits that Sola is his daughter, and seeing how he's compassionate towards her. And that's that statement right there. Tars was compassionate. That's not a Thark characteristic. And so he's exhibiting this trait that is so opposite from his peers. And when he makes the emotional choice to allow Sola to escape with John and Deja, it's a huge sacrifice for himself because it means a sacrifice of that trust that he had of his people. And when we return to the Tharks later in the film, when John comes back to try and amass an army, Tars has been all but killed. He's waiting to be killed because he was challenged and he lost because he no longer had the support of his people and he lost a challenge.
If there's a thing that the movie softens, and maybe wisely so, is the deeply, for an earthly word, the deeply religious angles that are within all the peoples of Mars are softened here a lot. And that's probably okay because if you've read further than the first book, it gets hairy in a hurry in terms of like, false gods and things like that. And I think they say it enough. They show like you said, either the dedication to race and family enough, or the divisions of the ways of the world, the harness of the world, and all that. They define that enough in a core, almost spiritual way that enough of those notes are there without getting all, we worship this river and this thing and this lady that we never see. And 2 novels from now, she's an evil person who eats everyone who ever goes down the river to pretend to die. And it's creepy and it's weird. I'm glad they softened that. But at the same time, like you said, it's that backbone is still there of all of these people have their warped sense of honor, and it's how and where it comes out and what can inspire them to shift it. And it's fun in a pulpy novel way. That is the alien that gets to do that, which is cool. And in this case, it's the guy from Jasum, which is John. So yeah, it's fun to watch all that. But you see that pride in all 3 of the races we see in the movie, where pledge my medal to yours is what you hear a ton. And that's the commonality they all have, even if they're all not fighting for the same cause. And it's a wondrous thing when we get them to a place where they can. And the person who gets to lift that flag and do that so much in the movie is Tars Tarkas. And I love in the novel how much he is, again, for lack of a better word, I love how much he's the BFF of things. The other guy who gets much more time in the novel than does in the movie, and it would be hard to get a second BFF, but Kantos Khan in the books is that helium BFF, and he gets James Purfoy has a fun role here for little bits and parts where you can see where there could be a cheeky relationship between him and John as kindred spirits and all that, but the movie does just fine to kind of still make helium your easy good guys and good people along the way.
Deja is great in the film as well. In the book, again, what I remember from the book is Deja was the princess to rescue.
Oh gosh, such the damsel in distress.
Exactly, damsel in distress.
1912 thing.
And now here, she's the head scientist of helium. Yes, she's still a princess, but she's the head scientist of helium. That's the first time we're introduced to her, is her trying to prepare this presentation of a scientific discovery of the 9th ray. Unfortunately for her, though, she is a princess nonetheless, and she's caught up in the politics required of her, calling for her to be married to Sabthan against her will for the protection of her people. And she eventually relents to that, but not before she puts up her fair fight, tries to find a solution to get out of that, and to save not only herself from this fate of being latched onto Sabthan forever, but also saving her people from being latched onto Zidanga as well. She wants her people to be strong and independent, and she wants herself to be strong and independent. In a lot of ways she is, but again, she is a princess, and as princess, she has certain responsibilities.
I think they really make her, in a good way, more of a chess piece than a damsel in distress, which is good because she could be a very powerful chess piece. She could be a rook, a bishop, or a queen, which is wonderful. And yeah, Lynn Collins displays that very well, as a strong female character. I'm sure some Bechdel test somewhere says there's still not enough lines for women in the movie, or she doesn't get enough things to do. But I tell you what, compared to the novel, she's one of the hugest improvements, because it's not just the prettiest girl in the world. Because to hear in the novel how many times John Carter fawns all over Dejah Thoris in his description of her every chance he gets of you think the chivalry's on on 7 in this movie, in the book it's 12, so they lay it on really thick in the book, and they make these two characters, like you said, kind of prideful and strong equals enough that when there is romance there, it fits because they're both cut from about that same cloth of strength,
Mm-hmm.
and not just the rippled, muscled superhero and the hottest big-breasted woman.
Right.
It's strength meaning strength and match meaning match, and it plays much better.
Do you have other characters you wanted to highlight?
Like I said, I kind of name drop Cantos Can, where in the book he gets a lot more to do, which is okay that he doesn't get more to do in the movie. But yeah, you have the triumvirate there, which is Taras Tarkas. I guess one more that I love from the book that they make adorable in the movie is Woola.
Yeah, Woola is so great.
Well, it's so great, and spot on to what he is in the novel, or what it is in the novel, and it's such a fun little character. I think another way of saying this is, and I was surprised because this is in Disney hands. Normally, without fail, movies like this, or even the animated versions of High Adventure, there's always one character, annoying side character you just want to punch in the face. Whether it's Iago from Aladdin, Eddie Murphy's Mushu the Dragon from Mulan. Like, I'm so glad the studio didn't just insert some stupid presence for the sake of having a stupid presence, or an overly cuddly sidekick who just says cute things like it's Orko from He-Man or something.
Mm-hmm.
You get Woola. You get an equal warrior who could just kick butt and get out there and run around, and it still lick your face and clean you off when you're done. I love that Disney relented its usual tendencies to put something stupid in there. I was so happy that I don't know whose hand hit the table and said nope. If it was Stanton's or Burroughs' whatever, I'm so happy there's not Iago in here.
I love how such an ugly creature can be so cute.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways. The way Woola commits himself to John is so awesome. After he is saved from being beaten by the Tharks by John, a couple of his finest moments when he stands with John as he faces down those Warhoon Tharks.
That's right.
He refuses to leave his side. And then later, as John is being sort of kidnapped by Matai Shang, Woola steps into the rescue, bites him, allows John to escape. So Woola has his shining moments too. Last week we talked about the adventures of Tintin and how Snowy is so integral to the plot there.
Yeah.
And he's such an adorable dog character, but he's still an important dog character too without being silly. I think Woola fits in that same vein here.
Not silly, not overdone, and all that. I'm also glad, and this is where Burroughs gets a knock a lot of times, is coming from Tarzan. The part of that story that has not aged well is the white savior thing. Mm-hmm. Which is fair, to a degree, where take it as fictional enough that, because again, the treatment of natives versus the big, powerful white guy mm-hmm. is a difficult thing, where I'm glad the movie tiptoes there, but isn't this, I mean, race is involved, or if you want to call it race is involved, and or, different factions and castes are involved, but I'm glad it doesn't go full white savior. Mm-hmm. It didn't need to, which is good. Later in the novels where there's black Martians, it would, and I'm glad they don't go there. So thank goodness that it's accessible in that way, because a couple years later they had a Tarzan movie with a guy from True Blood and all that, Alexander Skarsgård, mm-hmm. and you couldn't help but watch that and go, gosh, I don't know if Tarzan super duper fits in today's narrative, where too many people are going to be like, oh, you have the white guy beating up the Africans and saving the day and damsels in distress again. So, mm-hmm. But again, back then, allowable, okay, take it as a time capsule as you should, but it's a tough sell to make that now and not step into that bad spot. I'm glad this movie did.
One more character I wanted to mention, just because he wasn't featured in at least the initial book, was Matai Shang and the Therns. You can probably say, I think the Therns do pop up eventually in the series, right?
Yeah, a little bit, but not the puppeteers in this. Yeah.
Yeah, in Princess of Mars, I think they're maybe name dropped once.
Uh-huh.
But what was really cool about the Therns and Matai Shang is they're like these mysterious puppeteers and masters of manipulation, and it's a game for them in a lot of ways. It's like they choose an outcome for the planet, and they use everyone as their pawns in achieving that outcome. It's a game. They're having fun. It's for sport. And there's the scene where it's the big villain monologue that Mark Strong gets to have. He says that they manage the destruction of the planet. They feed off of it. So I just thought that as interesting characters go, having these mysterious puppeteers sort of managing things behind the scene and saying, no, this is Sab Than's time to rule. And this will lend to the destruction of these people so that can happen.
And it's played with such smoothness because, let's be honest, Mark Strong is a professional movie villain. He knows exactly how to do that. He's a pro. And Dominic West, equally professional movie villain. He's never a nice guy. I guess as a fellow novel reader, and not that we're all traditionalists and we're not the comic book salesman from The Simpsons sitting here going nitpicking every little thing in the world, could this movie have worked without the Thurn presence? That's my question to you.
Yeah, I think they could have.
I think they could have too.
I think if you just made it about the conflict between the people and then maybe put in some sort of ties to eventual, I mean, I wish we'd gotten the sequels and it doesn't look like we're ever going to, but in the sequels we could have been like, oh, remember that happening in the first John Carter film? This is why. This is who it ties back to. Just like it happens in the book, I suppose. I think that would have worked fine.
Could they have just made the medallion be the only piece of mysticism that got him to and from? I think they could have pulled that off too.
Yeah, we could have still had all of the ninth, well, maybe not all of the ninth race stuff, but the whole down the river is at the gates, all that kind of stuff where they're getting the mystery of it and like, oh, what's this place? What does this mean? I have this medallion that brought me here. Oh, it's going to take me back. All that kind of mystery. But then bring the Thurns of it into it later.
Yeah, it could have been done. But I'm glad. But he, like I said, he's smooth. I don't feel like it cancels out the other struggles that are there, and it works. You know, I think you needed that presence. And again, more mysticism, more Mark Strong. So.
What about the music here? What stands out about Michael Giacchino's music?
What is the string beat he uses as that little chord in the background? I can't place the instrument. You're the music guy.
Do you mean like at the beginning and the end of the film?
Yeah. What's the instrument that's making the strummed chords? The dun dun dun, that's twinkling of his theme that just adds, I don't know, an ethereal quality instead of just being all brass. Like if this was Conan the Barbarian, you'd have Basil Polidorus out here with just all brass, all strength, all strong. If this was a Disney movie, they would also, well, it is a Disney movie, but if this was a Disney movie from 50 years ago, they would also all brass, all strong it. But Giacchino comes in and gives it a genteel quality matching the genteel heart of the characters a little bit while still ramping it up like you need to kind of be an adventure movie. But I can't place, because it's not a harpsichord, it's not a harp. I can't place it.
Are you talking about just like at the beginning of the film?
Yeah, and then also the beginning of the credits as well.
Yeah, we hear the theme several times, obviously. I think it's probably a string instrument you're referring to, either like viola or cello or something like that, one of those richer tones. But it's romantic is what it is. This theme is going to be stuck in my head for the next 2 weeks. So I can thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Honestly, this is one of my favorite Giacchino scores ever. Stands right up there with The Incredibles while still being wholly different than that. And we do get several iterations of John Carter's theme. The first hint is over the logos at the very, very beginning, where it's just this mysterious presence, this mysterious introduction to the character. And then the first time we get this big sweeping version of that theme is as he's escaping on horseback from the prison. And then when he gets to Mars for the first time, we get this lilted sort of string waltz version as he's experimenting with the gravity and he's flying around. That track is called Gravity of the Situation, I believe.
Yeah, because of course, Giacchino and his puns.
Yes, of course. You can't have a good Giacchino score without the puns. It's honestly just some of Giacchino's finest work. You have the theme for the Ninth Ray and the Thurn as well. The action music is exciting. The themes are rich. It's honestly right up there with some of Williams' Star Wars music, I would say, too. I agree, just as good at the building of the world as John Williams' Star Wars stuff is.
Like you said, the range of it is really good because, like you said, like I'm talking about a little opening motif just to add softness, but then you have the warlike chants that kind of fill in where those warring factions come from the Red Martians. And Williams is a very good comparison here because in those Star Wars scores, he has little motifs for each thing. It's not that he's trying to do Peter the Wolf for the orchestra, but he's got that whole thing where he could take one theme of one character, one theme of another, and at some point they weave
Hmm.
into the scope and fabric of the movie. And not many composers can do that. You see a little dash of this, a little piece of that, but nothing like a unifying thing where each thing could plug in and work together when you need him to. Williams does that brilliantly. You'll have an action sequence where a Leia theme will sneak into a Force theme, and the Imperial brass will come in and steal the thunder away from a certain moment. And everyone's like, "Oh, Williams is just a theme artist. That's all he does is make themes." Well, go back and look at Williams and the way he weaves everything together, or the fact that his movies have more than one.
Hmm.
Because how many movies have we seen where all you can do is the same repetitive riff or cue, and that's all you got?
Right.
Giacchino has the depth to make multiple things and weave them together and suit each scene. And the mix of the film, or the choices of, I guess we have to say, the sound editing, where it's still a sword and sandal film where you have sound effects and clanging swords and kicked up dust and herds of things coming at you, but at the same time the steps and sound of the score do not go away, and they really merge in well. It's of course it's probably not going to be for a lot of people Giacchino's most memorable work, but when you go back and sit down almost clinically and look at it, it's easily one of his most complete, because I know he did Star Wars just before this, which wasn't bad, but he's borrowing. He's borrowing a theme and then adding some fun along the way.
Hmm.
But this, for an original work, not stealing other things, because again, he's jumped into Star Wars, he's jumped into the MCU. Yeah, short of his Pixar stuff, this is classy good stuff.
I really like one of the. There's a lot of tracks I could name. Another one that stood out as I was watching the end of the film is the track "10 Bitter Years." The very cool suspense music that builds in the strings that incorporates little pieces of the John Carter theme as we're building up to that final showdown
Right.
outside of the grave, or the tomb. Really, really nice. And anytime there's a suite on a soundtrack, I'm there. And there's a fantastic end credit suite here that is called John Carter of Mars, which should have been what the movie was called. Whatever, Disney.
I know.
But so I kind of get what Disney was going for, right? He's John Carter at the beginning. By the end, he is John Carter of Mars, and we finally get that JCM logo. But if you wanted people in the theaters, let them know it's a space movie and call it John Carter of Mars, please.
Or do the novel. Call it A Princess from Mars.
Yeah,
Princess
either way.
of Mars.
I mean, he says the line in the film, "A Princess of Mars." Anyways, that's a whole other aside. But John Carter of Mars is the last track on the album. It's 8+ minutes long. It's every piece of material you could want from the film as a whole compiled into one. It's very, very nice. And it's peaceful too. It starts off that way, at least. When you get to that logo and the credits start playing, and it's not brass to the wall. It's let's breathe a little bit. Let's have this romantic theme for a little bit, and we'll get to the cool stuff later. But right now, let's just bask in the glory of John Carter's ascension in a way. Like he has reached what his purpose is.
And again, for Giacchino to employ and use every stitch of the orchestra to do it is proof of his brilliance. Because like, and we keep saying Williams. Williams can do that. Williams can use an entire orchestra and create a legitimate, sweet track. Hans Zimmer can't do that. Hans Zimmer, as great as Hans Zimmer is, he gets his core rumbling thing, especially lately where he's getting electronic with things and very percussion based with things. He can get your energy up, but he can't sustain you for 8 minutes at a time. Or if he does it, he has to do it with incredibly repetitive and incredibly slow, where he's got to get those Dunkirk drums, or he's got to get the church organ for Interstellar, and that's all you get, because he's just going to repeat that. He needs that heartbeat note that just unfortunately is repetitive. This, like we keep saying, has sweep, wonderful sweep
and variety. And man, Giacchino, I've always said this. I've said this for at least a decade. Giacchino, I think, is the most talented active composer working in Hollywood right now. I think the genres that he can work in, the styles he can mess with, the instrumentation, his ability to adapt into another composer's style, talking about something like Rogue One, where he actually wasn't even completely just mimicking Williams. He stepped in and filled in for Alexander Desplat, who stepped away from the project in the last month of the film being made. So, I mean, he has shown how adaptable he is, and I cannot wait to see what Giacchino continues to do for the rest of his career.
You will enjoy to see him take something smaller. He just did the score for Jojo Rabbit, which is up for the Oscar. And decidedly smaller film, decidedly different tone of film. I don't know if I mean, I know Giacchino's done historical stuff when it comes to some of the Incredibles vibes of like 60s kishy James Bond stuff. Making a 40s film, his score for that you would like. I'll have to send you a digital copy. You'll dig it. But then you'll listen to it. But you'll listen to a score that's out of context in the movie. So I don't know if I want to do that till you see the movie. But let me know.
Okay.
But in the meantime, no, I've loved his work since Lost, because the same thing. He brings so many different motifs and cues there where, again, he'll take a roller coaster of a scene and he'll do the life and death stuff. He'll do the, the island theme. He'll do, I don't know if you're a Lost guy, but like, yeah, he's the best. He's the best of this new breed working today. He's the guy who will take the torch from Williams, and deservedly so.
Let's go into our final discussion section, which is the takeaways from the film, themes from the film. What ultimately does this film leave you with going on?
A couple things. It gives me, like I opened with, it gives me so much respect for this era of pulp novels and pulp fiction, and not the Tarantino version of pulp fiction, real pulp fiction, pulp science fiction, these early works of science fiction. And since I've seen the movie, and it inspired me to seek out more of it, and since I've now read the novels in the last 2 years, I've just done a deep dive where once I got done with Barsoom, I went back to Tarzan. Once I got done with Tarzan, I did some Sir Arthur Conan Doyle in the Lost World. Then I'll do like Zorro. I'll do just, I find these 100-year-old things of written fun that are just better than some, I don't know if I could pick up a novel now, some science fiction that would just, I don't know, just be as rich as this old stuff where, again, the language is different. It's more advanced. The vocabulary is so much fun. And as a school teacher, I'm engrossed because it's complicated. Complicated in the way they describe it, but simple in the way they want to storytell. Like, this is good guy with damsel in distress saving the day. But they give us twists and turns and created worlds that challenge me. And I like that. So one takeaway is just don't have youthful ignorance for this era of culture, of cultural medium, and honor the things that inspired the people who've inspired us since. Because when you do hear about, George Lucas and the Carl Sagans and the Ray Bradburys who read this stuff and beloved it, I find it easy to love it too, and I like that. The other takeaways are, again, that me, every movie has a lesson. So the nobility stuff is just so huge, and I love that addition to the story that wasn't in the book, because the book is a Superman. The book is a guy who is the flawless, not the whatever the name for a male Mary Sue would be, where everything works for him. So I like the fractured character that finds nobility and redemption and finds selflessness. Love that arc. And yeah, the science fiction wonders are there too, where same thing, sweeping romance. I'll go back to that comparison I said at the beginning. When I saw the Hunger Games 2 months later, and for as much as world building as they tried to do, and as much as they tried to, shoehorn romance into that series, it just didn't feel as fun and as rich and compelling as this one. So if something like this, and it's somewhat dated sophistication, can beat stuff like the Hunger Games, great. Put me in a time capsule. Keep me there. I don't want the modern stuff if the old stuff is always going to be this fun.
There were a couple of quotes from the film I wanted to highlight. There's once early on in the film after John and Deja first meet. John says war is a shameful thing, as Deja is sitting there mourning the loss of her people after the airships go down. And she responds, "Not when a cause is taken up by those who can make a difference."
Great line.
This is a woman who has just, again, lost several of her people. She is losing her way of life because she's being forced into this marriage in order to protect her people. And she has so much to get away from not fighting further. She has so much to gain, namely people's lives. But she says, not when a cause is taken up by those who can make a difference. That's when this stuff matters. And later in the film, she says, if you had the means to save others, would you not take any action possible to make it so? So I love this highlighting of sometimes when there is a cause to fight for, the fighting is worth it. You have to stand up for something sometimes. You can't just sit by and hope for something to happen. You have to take charge. You have to get people to your cause. You have to do what it takes sometimes in order to accomplish what you're wanting to accomplish. You have to stand together. So that was something that I thought was really worth taking away from the film. She also has a quote. She says, "A life of oppression, that's not living," in reference to marrying Sabthan. John says, well, save your people, marry Sabthan. Like, duh. That's his solution. But she says, "A life of oppression, that's not living." It's sort of going back to another Andrew Stanton film, going back to Wall-E. You have John, I think his name's John. He says, "I don't want to survive. I want to live." You know, it's sort of that same kind of thing. I don't want to be tied down in this less than ideal situation just to save people. That's not worth it. That's a life of slavery, a life of servitude in a lot of ways. So pushing past that expectation. And then one more on John's side, the idea of moving on, but not forgetting. You look at his relationship with his wife and his daughter that he's lost. And for so long, he let this tragedy rule his life to the point of making him selfish. And it was only when he let himself care about new things on Mars, to fight for things, open himself up to the possibilities of new love, not to replace the old love, but in a way to sort of continue it. That was when he learned to care about not only himself again. So moving on, not forgetting. He shouldn't forget his wife and his daughter. Those were important parts of his past and they made him who he is. But he can't let the loss of them just rule his life.
Remind me, and I don't have a good memory for this part. I don't know if there's a wife and lost daughter in the novel. Is there?
Not that I remember.
I think we just
I don't think so.
I think we just get, burly, awesome Civil War hero with the gold mine, and that's all we get. So to add that layer, it's just a stroke. It's a great stroke of genius for that. Because, like you said, it humanizes and brings that character together. Yeah, just man. Whew. We see so many movies where I think we started saying this where at the beginning where I'm that guy who's quick to put the T-shirt on and acknowledge that the book will always be better than the movie, but there's different places where a movie can improve upon or shine a better light on the book, and we've said that through this whole conversation between a stronger female character, a fractured character that's not trying to be an anti-hero but just has fractures, has flaws, has loss, and even the scene where he's taken that wedding ring and he's giving his beat up former tin wedding ring to his new Martian wife is amazing. Just such a gesture, like you said, of not forgetting but continuing, and it's such, just a nice way of doing things. A level of, I don't want to keep saying chivalry again, but just a level of romance we just don't often get. We get hot and heavy stuff, we get superficial things, we get navel gazing, but we don't get spiritual equals, and we get this here, which is cool to see.
Do you have any closing thoughts on the film as a whole?
More people should go see it.
Yes, they should.
People ask me all the time, like, or the question comes up in different groups in different places, like, what's a movie that has a Rotten Tomatoes rating, like a Rotten Tomatoes rating that is great and people should see it? And unfortunately, too often, I think John Carter's on that list. At the same time, is now that Disney Plus is out, John Carter's still finishing its little contractual run with Netflix. But when people are like, what's something I maybe haven't seen that I need to try on this new service that everyone's trying? Right now, I'm telling people on Disney Plus, go see like The Rocketeer. Because that's, again, if you like Captain America and MCU stuff, go watch Joe Johnston do it even better with The Rocketeer. So, like, these are those fun little, what Disney used to do. Disney used to make live action fun adventures that they don't make anymore. They reboot and reimagine. And the stuff we've been seeing lately is just so regurgitated, grand and amazing as it can be. It's just the same, and it's creative bankruptcy, like people say. But then you get something like John Carter, which is manifested and rich and awesome, and where all of us are begging for more creative new ideas, but too many people keep, again, seeing this as Avatar and Star Wars. So if you can get past that and take out some youthful ignorance and do some homework when you come into a movie or out of a movie, you'll just get richer appreciation for things. And this is a movie people can richly appreciate.
I agree on all points. I am heartbroken for Andrew Stanton that he wasn't able to complete the trilogy that he set out to make.
Yeah.
For a man who had such a colorful animation career, and he's still making movies. I mean, he's still out there doing things.
Yeah. Toy Story 3 he helped with, or Toy Story 4 he had a hand in, so he's all there still.
But I would imagine that a defeat like this one is demoralizing in a lot of ways, and it's not because he made an inferior product.
No.
It's all on the marketing. Again, I'll recommend that book. It's called John Carter and the Gods of Hollywood. It's all about why this movie failed the way it did, and it was not even kind of remotely Andrew Stanton's fault. He made a fantastic film. It's a lot of fun. Lots of, again, I said at the start of the film, it's a great adaptation of the book while still building it and making it his own and making characters new and interesting. And that's really all you could ask for from a book to film adaptation, is something familiar but different, I think.
Especially for something this old, where you do have some hurdles to get people to buy in,
Mm-hmm.
and you do have all these comparisons. For him to make this level of detail and do it with this kind of honor, he deserves another chance at making a live action film. I hope he gets that chance. I hope Disney comes around and gives him something. I hope they don't give him, oh, what would be a dumb reimagining that we haven't touched yet? What hasn't been done yet? The Rescuers Down Under or something. I hope they don't give him something like that. Give him something rich and good.
Give him John Carter 2 and 3.
Jim Gontar 2 or
Why
3.
not?
Give him the God of Mars. The Warlord of Mars.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, oh no. The other thing I'll recommend to people, once you see the movie, go find that book. I'll name drop it again. If you have a library card with the Hoopla system, the first, I want to say 4 or 6 of these novels are all free audiobook checkouts you can do in the Hoopla app. And I have to say, it's a really cheesy reader. Because in audiobooks, one person has to play all the characters. His female voice is terrible. And he tries this Southern accent on the movie, which is, again, a reach. But look past the voice, look past the really bad man trying to talk like a girl. But you get, again, the rich language and the adventure comes through even with bad reading.
Well, I'll say, when I first bought the book, I bought it on my Kindle. And I believe it came with the first 7 books in the series, and it was like maybe $5 to $8, something like that. So if you wanted to go that route too, if you didn't want the audiobook, definitely go for that, and you can get the first 7 books, and that way it's easy to commit because you got 7 books right in front of you, and they're quick, easy reads.
They are very easy reads. I want to say each of the audiobooks were 5-6 hours tops. They're real quick, fun things to do. And when you're done, go listen to Tarzan too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been head over heels over Burroughs. It's been fun.
Yeah. Well, if that's all we have to say about the movie, I will say that is the end of the 83rd episode of Cinescope. Thank you so much for joining me, Don.
No, thank you, Chad, for having me. Let's find another one sometime to talk about some more. This has been fun.
Yes, it has. Let's do it. Contact for the show, facebook.com/Cinescope Podcast and @Cinescope Pod on Twitter. Please consider going over to Apple Podcasts, leave a rating, drop a review, hit that subscribe button to help gain notoriety and to help spread the word, get new listeners into the show. If you have feedback or ideas, you can always email thecinescopepodcast@gmail.com. And Don, where can we find you and your work online?
Easiest place to find me is the search item of Every Movie Has a Lesson. That's everymoviehaslesson.com. That's where you'll find me on Facebook and on Twitter. I'll name drop the other outlet I've been writing for, 25 Years Later. That's 25yearslatersite.com, but 25YL is the way you can search for that stuff. I'm on Rotten Tomatoes. I'm on other places and things, and it's just been fun to put reviews out there. Oscars are this week. Birds of Prey coming up soon. We'll see how 2020 treats us with no Avengers movies in sight. Well, I guess you have Black Widow. That doesn't count. We'll see. No Star Wars movies this year. So,
yeah. The best place to find me is @Chadadada on Twitter. That is CHADADADA. I have a Letterboxd account. It's Chadadada17. If you wanted to follow along with what I watch on a regular basis and maybe see what's coming up next on Cinescope, I always post there. I want to give a couple quick plugs that I don't give every week, but because we talked about John Carter today. First off, you mentioned the Underrated podcast earlier today. They are no longer the Underrated podcast. They are now called Franchise Fatigue. But when they were underrated, I was on an episode with them talking about John Carter and how great it is. So if you want to hear more, maybe some of the same stuff, maybe some different stuff, go listen to them. I'll put a link in the show notes. There's also my giant write-up, which has links to other write-ups of each individual thing. It is called My Adventures on Barsoom, and it's on my website, chadtalksmovies.com, which I don't really post on anymore, but I will make sure to link that in the show notes as well. And then lastly, there's my other podcast, which is called An American Workplace. It was an episode-by-episode rewatch of The Office. It is since finished, but the whole archive is available to listen to, is available where podcasts can be found and at workplacepodcast.com. In all the show notes, if you need to see them, all the contact information can be found at thecinescopepodcast.com. So thank you once again, Don. It's been a lot of fun.
Thank you, Chad. Take care.
You too. Bye, everybody. have fun, and celebrate movies. What have you been up to?
For me, long time no chat. It's just been more of being the press credential guy, climbing the ladder, doing what I can, trying to write different things for myself or for otherwise. I've picked up an
Mhm.
outlet since I talked to you last. I've been writing as a staff writer for the website 25 years later. They're a good
Mhm.
little genre site, kind of their all your obsessions in one place is kind of their slogan. And it started out as a Twin Peaks website, and it has turned
Okay.
into a kind of an all entertainment, all genres kind of place. And they were inquiring for writers last summer. I kind of answered an ad from a couple of people on Facebook and things like that, and I've been writing for them for a good bunch of yeah, I think about 7 months now. I'm on my
Awesome.
like 40th piece for them, and it's been really good because I have more traffic. Right, this it's been the biggest site I've written for in quite a long time. So they get about nearly approaching about 200,000 UMVs a month, and that's shoot 10 times more than my own personal site does. So that's it's nice to have an audience. It's nice to help that site kind of get on Rotten Tomatoes because I've been able to get on Rotten Tomatoes over the last year, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, just kind of having that credential get a little thicker and be a little more fun, and yeah, enjoy myself along the way. I'm a school teacher by day, so middle school social studies kind of fills my time, and I love that. But at the same time, it's nice to have this little moonlighting night job of seeing movies and writing about them. So yeah, that's kind of what I've been up to for the last so and so year bit and change.
Nice. What have you been to the theater to see lately? I know you get the free screenings and stuff like that. So what kind of stuff you been doing?
I sure do. I'm ashamed to say to that question, I have not gone to a press credential screening since Star Wars.
Okay.
A week before it came out in December. I'm on a dry spell of dry spells. It ends tomorrow though.
Okay.
Tomorrow I go see Birds of Prey, and
Okay.
that'll get me off the bench and back in the game. No, January's ugly. There's just the power of being my own boss means I don't have to watch everything or for everybody. So I kind of get to pick and choose. It's award season, so I've kind of kept track of that. Most of those things, luckily, thanks to the screenings and all the free swag that we get as being connected in critics groups, I saw most of that stuff, in November and December.
Hmm.
So I've been kind of done with that stuff for a long time, just letting it kind of do its thing. So no, January has been a lot of little VOD releases, a lot of little small movies along the way, the Oscar nominated shorts and documentaries, and some of that stuff's been crossing my plate. But I didn't go see Bad Boys for Life. I didn't go see whatever the three January horror movies everyone wants to put
Yeah, I
in
was about
there.
to say the 3 or 5 horror
Liam
films.
Neeson doesn't have a movie this year, so that January gets a little more boring. So I'm happy to say I've seen nothing, and I'm okay with it. You know what? I'll name drop one cute movie on Amazon Prime Video, and it has a little bit of a theatrical release going right now. Troop Zero. Adorable movie, real cute movie about
Okay.
kind of near do well little weird little science girls in the 70s who want to get their name on the golden record, which goes on Voyager 1 and Voyager 2, and to do so they kind of have to like win a kind of a Girl Scout style talent competition. Silly, easy going movie where kind of the stem of today can kind of echo into the times of yesterday, and it's McKenna Grace, who's that up and coming little actress, and I don't know
Hmm.
if they owe money to somebody, but Viola Davis and Allison Janney are kind of the two name actresses in there who are the dueling adults with these kids in mind, and it's on Amazon Prime. Real cute movie, best thing I've seen this year, but that's easy to say because I've seen like two things this year.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, I have not been to the theater much recently either. I went for a rewatch of Parasite a couple weeks ago, which is great because I got to introduce my roommate to that because he didn't go with me the first time. And I've watched a few things for the
Yeah.
podcast. I watched Wizard of Oz
Ooh.
this past
Ah,
weekend, which is great because we just did a musical production. It was at my feeder high school. They did
sure.
the production, and a lot of us band directors got our instruments out and we put metal to face and we played the
That's
music. It was a lot of
awesome.
fun.
Wow.
Yeah, it was a great time. It was fun. It was a good full circle moment for me because I did Wizard of Oz back when I was a freshman in high school, and I had like a couple small bit parts on the stage. And so now I'm a teacher,
Right.
and I got to be involved in the production, but this time in the orchestra doing my thing now.
Very cool. Very cool. In terms of a big screen experience, I'm pretty sure I saw it in 3D. It plays well in 3D.
hmm
The effects are gorgeous. I mean, flawless effects.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was. You're right. We'll probably never get to see it on the big screen again unless it becomes a cult following somewhere, or there's an IMAX 3D film festival when 3D becomes lame someday, and they're like, oh, remember that John Connor movie all laughed at? Come watch it in 3D. I don't know. Yeah. If not, it'll look gorgeous on 4K at home. Because I have just Blu-ray
Yeah.
1080p here at home, and I think I've shown you, I got the projector on the wall, and it looked great there. I know Disney Plus, whenever it shows up in
hmm
Disney Plus, I think all their stuff is natively in 4K streaming out to people, so it'll look like $1 million when it gets there.
Yeah, I watched it on Netflix earlier.
Mm.
I have the Blu-ray as well,
Yeah,
but if it ever comes out with a 4K, I will definitely pick that up.
I have not dove into having a 4K player. My time will come. I'm kind
Yeah.
of that lame old school guy who's like happy Blu-rays are starting to die because now I'm like picking up Blu-rays for sale to replace like DVDs, and that's been fun. So because I'm still
See,
spinning crappy DVDs every now and then.
yeah, I still am building my Blu-ray collection, but I'm also working on my 4K collection, which I
Yeah,
started building last Christmas 2018. And so I'm getting that slowly built up. And I've got my 4K player here in my
yeah.
bedroom.
For me, it's been shrinking. I know I keep saying buy. If I buy, it's to replace. And like my rule is, if I buy one, I have to throw two away, or at least donate two to the library or something like that. I used to have like, oh my God, it was like 12 foot wide. I used to have like 1,100 or 1,200 discs, and it was massive. But then, then I have kids, and I have to move to a smaller place or just a place where kids can't pick all those things off the shelf because my goodness, that'd be a lot of things to pick up. And I've
hmm
started to kind of go digital with a lot of things where now like a big old MyBook terabyte hard drive holds a lot of my movies where I'm down to like 350. I just sold a bunch years ago before kids and trying to shrink.
Yeah, I have a whole bunch of movies. I don't have my full list available right now. I thought I
Mhm.
had it in this app, which is
I
really sad
definitely
because
don't have mine typed up.
oh, okay. 441 Blu-rays and 4K
Now,
movies
that's a healthy
total.
collection.
Yeah, I can't let go of physical format yet.
Me neither. There's if there's what gets me to buy a physical format is this. I don't mind the special features. Like now that I've watched John Carter again for the who knows how many times since 12, I gotta sit down and listen to commentary sometime. I'd love to hear
Mhm.
Stanton. You have Stanton pick our brains about it. I think it'd be a good commentary to listen to.
That would be a
Um,
good one.
it would be a good one. I don't know who else is on commentary with him, but whoever it would be good. Just Stan alone, I think, would be a brilliant mind to hear from. Are you much of a Criterion guy? Do you get artsy fartsy and seek out some of those things?
I think I only have one
Yeah,
Criterion film. It's A Night to Remember, the
there you
Titanic
go.
film.
I know I'm starting to pick up some, but more like not super foreign obscure stuff, but like they put Bull Durham on Criterion.
hmm
They put like David Fincher's The Game on Criterion,
hmm
stuff like that. I've been starting to pick some of those like when there's a sale, because as a teacher I keep getting gift cards. I don't know why. I don't even read books. My kids must think I do, but I get like Barnes and Noble's gift cards, and I
Uh-huh.
don't know what to buy at Barnes and Noble's, but I know twice a year they have their Criterion sale,
Right.
and I'll save my gift cards up for that. So
That's great.